So the tools that the Mujtahid used were what we've discussed. They used istihsan, juristic preference, ijma, which was usually consensus. However, they didn't all agree on istihsan. Okay? Because for some, istihsan was consideration of maqasid. It was a rationalistic tool, you know. For example, one of the maqasid of Sharia is justice. Is there any doubt about it? No. Why? There are so many verses of the Quran that establish or require us to stand for justice, even if it's against our own selves. So when a scholar finds that a particular hadith or qiyas or ijma in a particular context would go against justice, then he would prefer to go with maqasid than to go with any of that in that particular context. Of course, some of the scholars like the Shafi'i, particularly the early Shafi'i scholars, felt this is too rationalistic a tool. Maslaha, they had a problem with that. The Zahiri also had a problem with istihsan. So some accepted istihsan, some didn't. Ijma. What do we mean by ijma? Ijma means when the Quran and Sunnah are silent on something, then what is the consensus of scholars? If there was already a hadith or Sunnah, Quran or Sunnah on that topic, then we don't need ijma. Why we got Quran and Sunnah? So ijma came up when there was silence in the Quran or the Sunnah. And therefore some scholars like Ibn Taymiyyah considered ijma as actually ijtihad ijma'i. It's collective ijtihad that we are calling ijma. But then the question came, some of the Zahiri scholars, for example, they had a problem with ijma. Why? When you say there's ijma, how do you know there's ijma? Does anybody go around to collect the opinion? No. Did they all come together to say this is our conclusion? No. And so the Zahiri have a problem with ijma. The other thing was the scholars disagreed on ijma of whom? Ijma of Sahaba? Is that what we mean by ijma? Ijma of the earliest generation, the Sahaba and the Tabi'in? Ijma of the Mujtahid scholars? Ijma of all the scholars of that time? Ijma of the whole ummah? Could ijma be overridden by a new ijma if society changes? Or as some put it, like some of the Shia, ijma was ijma of Ahl al-Bayt. So when we look at ijma, they all agree ijma is important, but the main challenge is they disagree on the definition of ijma and how it is arrived at. Qiyas, reasoning by analogy. For most of the schools, qiyas was based on illah. In other words, there was a specific reason that you use to say something is haram. So if you say a person who is fasting or who is sick can break his fast. Sorry, a person who is traveling or a person who is sick can break his fast. What is the illah? What is the reason why he can break his fast? Travel. That's the reason. Or sickness. That's a reason clearly mentioned in the Quran. But why is a person who is sick or traveling allowed to break his fast? Why? Some would say because of hardship, difficulty. That's not what the Quran says. Quran didn't say because of difficulty. Quran says because of sickness or travel. So when they look at the reason for that and they say it's because of hardship, they call that the hikmah, not the illah. If somebody is a fisherman, that's his job, and he hasn't got another job. and he goes on the seas. He may not be going far enough, but his job of removing nets is very tiring. And he finds it difficult to work for more than 6 hours without having to drink something. Can he have an exception like the sick person or the traveling person? Those scholars who will go with illa will say no. Those who will go with hikmah would say yes. Some try to combine. They would say, let him start fasting. When it gets too difficult, and he will fall sick if he doesn't, then he can break his fast. If a dog licks your hand, does that spoil your ablution? Is it najasa? For the Malikis, let's start with the Shafi and the Hanafi and Hanbali. Because of a hadith which says if a dog licks a bowl 7 times, licks a bowl, wash it 7 times, and one of those times with sand. I mean, normally if there's najasa on your dress, just wash it once. Once the najasa is out, it's clean. But if this hadith is requiring you to wash 7 times, then the logic is this is super najasa. This is not ordinary najasa. This is definitely najasa. Therefore, if it is najasa, then it's like urine. You'd have to wash your hands. You can't pray with it on your dress or on you. For the Malikis, they feel, wait a minute. The Prophet just said if it licks a bowl, wash it 7 times. And one of those times with sand. Bowl. It didn't say hand. The Quran allows when you use your hunting dog to go and catch an animal. Even though the dog catches the animal, we have nothing in the hadith saying you have to wash the neck 7 times. So for the Malikis, they feel, you know what? We don't know why. We don't know the illah of why we wash 7 times. We only know if a dog licks a bowl, you wash. But not to start a logic that it is because it's najasa. The hadith didn't say that. That's qiyas. The Malikis would say, we wash the bowl 7 times. The way when you are doing wudu, you wash your legs how many times? Your feet 3 times. Are you washing your feet because there's najasa? No. But because that's the number of times the Prophet ﷺ said we should do it. So they actually look at it as more ta'abud. We do it because we've been told we should do it, but we don't know why. So they would not do qiyas with the dog licking. So for the Malikis, dog saliva is not najasa. And of course, the Hanafis went ahead with the same similar type of logic. That if an animal therefore is not allowed to eat, then the saliva of that animal is najasa. So cat saliva would be najasa. But that will create too much problems. And so even though it's an ahad hadith and qiyas, because ihtisan, you will make life difficult for people, they did not apply the qiyas. They took maslaha or istihsan to say, you know what, we'll stop the logic where it stops. Of course, the Malikis will say, but you're not allowed to eat human meat. But human saliva is not najasa. But this is where the scholars start to differ when you reach qiyas. Of course, the Zahiri scholars, if the illah is not specific, they do not approve of qiyas. Why? They look at this as just, this is too much logic in religion. And they will bring, you see, you differ, and you want to say Allah said, and it's haram, and this is fard based on your qiyas. And so they are more critical of that. Ahad hadith, again they all accept ahad hadith, but they differ in its strength. For the Hanafis, ahad hadith on its own cannot make something haram, only makruh tahrimi. If it is supported by something, then fine, it strengthens it. But on its own, it can only make a thing wajib but not fard, and makruh tahrimi but not haram. For the Malikis, ahad hadith on its own can only make a thing mustahab or makruh, but not haram or fard. So for example, there's a sahih hadith where the Prophet ﷺ said, any animal that has fangs or canine teeth, carnivorous animals, animals that eat meat, or birds that have claws, are haram to be consumed. Okay, it's haram to eat them. Because it's an ahad hadith, for Malik, the general rule on mu'amalat is everything is halal except what is haram. And an ahad hadith cannot make haram something the Quran has made halal. So they take it can make it makruh. So for Maliki, eating a wolf, eating a lion is makruh, not haram. For the Shafi and the Hanbali, an ahad hadith is strong enough to make a thing haram, and it's strong enough to make something fard. Yeah. Usually if there's no contradiction, no problem. It's only when there's contradictory evidence that the Shafis will put ijma ahead or other things. But and other schools would differ. But the moment an ahad hadith is strengthened by qiyas, or strengthened by maslaha, or strengthened by something else, Amal of Medina, etc., then they give it more authority.